Hey there, Pokemon trainer! How's it going? Minebuild here, and today I'm going to show you how to use Alakazam in competitive battles. If you're into strategy and want to step up your competitive Pokemon game, stick with me in this video. I'll break down my analysis of this awesome Pokemon and highlight the best moves to get the most out of it in single battles. And hey, I want to hear from you too. What moveset would you use on Alakazam? Drop your suggestions in the comments. If you enjoy this competitive Pokemon analysis, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support the Minebuild channel. It really helps the channel grow on the platform. And if you love Pokemon and also play Minecraft, stick around until the end. I've put together a playlist with amazing Pokemon builds in Minecraft, all created by me. Now, let's get started and make Alakazam shine in battles. Alakazam made its debut in the Kanto region as Pokemon number 65 in the National Dex. It evolves from Abra, the first stage, to Kadabra, the second stage, and finally into Alakazam, its fully evolved form. It's a pure psychic type, which makes it strong in some areas but leaves it with obvious weaknesses in competitive battles. According to the Pokédex, Alakazam stands at 1.5 meter tall and weighs 48 kilograms. Its total base stats add up to 500, spread across HP, 55, attack, 50, defense, 45, special attack, 135, special defense, 95, and speed, 120. Alakazam has three very different abilities. Starting with Synchronize, its effect is straightforward. If Alakazam gets burned, poisoned, or paralyzed, the opponent receives the same status back. This is especially useful against stall teams that rely on spreading status. However, it won't work against Pokemon that are immune, like Steel types, no poisoned, or abilities like Water Veil and Limber. Also, keep in mind, Alakazam still suffers the status too. Next is Inner Focus. This ability prevents flinching and blocks stat drops caused by the ability Intimidate. While that sounds useful, it has very little impact in practice since Alakazam doesn't care about attack drops and rarely struggles with flinching. Overall, this is the least valuable option. Finally, the hidden ability, Magic Guard, which is clearly the best. Magic Guard makes Alakazam immune to all indirect damage. That includes status damage, burned, poisoned, weather, like sandstorm, entry hazards, stealth rock, spikes, toxic spikes, and effects like Leech Seed. It also removes recoil from item Life Orb, letting you keep the damage boost with no downside. The only damage Alakazam takes is from direct attacks or from its own moves, like Substitute, Curse, Belly Drum, or Pain Split. In short, Magic Guard is the optimal choice. It removes passive damage entirely and lets Alakazam play as a high-risk, high-reward special sweeper much more safely. Going back to Alakazam's base stats, its HP is really low, and its attack is just as bad, which means physical moves are completely off the table. On top of that, its defense is terrible, so combined with that low HP, it's not taking physical hits anytime soon. Its special defense is decent, but again, that low HP holds it back, so it won't be tanking special attacks reliably either. Now, where Alakazam really shines is its special attack. It's way above average, and its speed is also extremely high. That combination makes it a serious offensive threat. Alakazam fits perfectly into the role of a fast special sweeper. It hits hard, outspeeds most opponents, but struggles to take hits in return. Alakazam takes 2 times damage from Bug, Ghost, and Dark-type moves. Against Normal, Fire, Water, Electric, Grass, Ice, Poison, Ground, Flying, Rock, Dragon, Steel, and Fairy types, Alakazam takes neutral damage. On the resistance side, there are some positives. Alakazam has a 2 times resistance to fighting and psychic-type moves, meaning it only takes 50% damage from those. So in summary, Alakazam has 3 2 times weaknesses and 2 2 times resistances. Because of its limited resistances, Alakazam isn't built to play a defensive or supportive role. It simply doesn't have the bulk or typing to stay on the field for long. That really leaves it with one clear purpose: coming in, hitting fast, and dealing as much damage as possible as an offensive Pokémon. Offensively, Alakazam deals super effective damage against fighting and poison types. Against normal, fire, water, electric, grass, ice, ground, flying, bug, rock, ghost, dragon and fairy types, it deals neutral damage. However, Alakazam's stab moves have clear limits. They can't touch Dark-type Pokémon at all, since they're completely immune. Against Psychic and Steel types, these moves only deal half damage, 50%, so Alakazam has to be careful when facing them. Alright, let's take a look at the best move options I've selected. Let's start with one of Alakazam's most used moves, Psychic. It's a Psychic type, stab special move, with 90 base power and a 10% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage, 33.3%. Another Psychic type, stab special move is Expanding Force, with 80 base power. If used under Psychic terrain, it gets a 50% boost, hitting 120 base power. This move is especially strong in double battles and is commonly seen in VGC, though in singles, regular Psychic might be the safer choice. Then there's Psyshock, another Psychic type, stab special move with 80 base power. What makes it unique is that it uses the opponent's defense instead of special defense for damage calculation. So even though it's a special move, it can hit physically bulky opponents more effectively. For coverage, Alakazam can use Dazzling Gleam, a fairy-type special move with 80 base power. It's great for hitting dark types, which are immune to Psychic stab moves, giving Alakazam some much-needed versatility. Another strong coverage option is Focus Blast, a fighting-type special move with 120 base power and a 10% chance to lower the target's special defense by 1 stage, 33.3%. It hits Dark and Steel types, the ones that resist or are immune to Psychic, but its 70% accuracy makes it somewhat unreliable. For dealing with opposing Psychic types, Shadow Ball is a Ghost-type special move with 80 base power and a 20% chance to lower special defense by 1 stage, 33.3%. It hits Psychic types for super effective damage, since Psychic stab moves only deals half damage to them. Finally, Alakazam can use the status move Nasty Plot, a Dark-type move that boosts its special attack by 2 stages, effectively doubling it. This allows Alakazam to hit insanely hard, turning it into a devastating offensive threat. Now that we've gone through Alakazam's best move options, let's move on to the ideal singles battle moveset I've put together for you. After analyzing Alakazam's base stats, ability, and move pool, it's clear that it was designed to function as a special offensive Pokémon. Its high speed often allows it to strike first, and its excellent special attack lets it deal massive damage to opponents. On top of that, its ability Magic Guard synergizes perfectly with the item Life Orb, since it prevents recoil damage. This means Alakazam gets the damage boost without any drawback, making it even more threatening. For EVs, I maxed out speed and special attack, since those are its most important stats. The remaining points were placed into special defense. For IVs, everything is set to 31. However, in some cases, you might want to run 0 attack IVs to reduce damage taken from Foul Play, a dark-type move that hits Alakazam super effectively. That said, based on information from Pokemon Champions, for customization may not be available, meaning all stats would be fully maximized by default. The chosen nature is Timid, which boosts speed and lowers attack. Since Alakazam doesn't use physical moves, this is the optimal choice to make it even faster. The selected ability is Magic Guard, as mentioned earlier, preventing indirect damage such as burned, poisoned, and entry hazards like Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes. As for the moveset, Psychic is used as the main stab move. For coverage, I chose Dazzling Gleam, Fairy type, and Shadow Ball, Ghost type. As a setup option, Nasty Plot is included to double Alakazam's special attack and turn it into a major threat. You could also run Focus Blast in this set, since it provides great coverage against Dark and Steel types. However, I didn't include it due to its low accuracy. In practice, unreliable moves can cost you games, so I prefer options that offer more consistent damage. Let's take a look at some other moves Alakazam can learn. On the physical side, Alakazam actually has access to a decent variety of attacking moves. However, it can't really use them for damage, since its attack stat is extremely low. That said, some physical moves can still be useful, especially ones that don't rely on Alakazam's own attack stat. One example is Foul Play, a Dark-type move with 95 base power that calculates damage based on the opponent's attack instead. This makes it a solid option in certain situations. Another option is Knock Off, a Dark-type move with 65 base power. If the opponent is holding an item, the first hit gets boosted to 97.5 base power and removes that item. After that, the power goes back to 65 since the item is gone. In Alakazam's case, Knock Off is mainly useful for utility removing items rather than dealing damage, since its low attack stat limits its offensive potential on the physical side. On the special side, we've already covered most of Alakazam's main options, but there are still a few moves worth mentioning. One of them is Energy Ball, a grass-type special move with 90 base power and a 10% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage, 33.3%. Another option is Future Sight, a Psychic-type, stab special move with 120 base power. The downside is that it doesn't deal damage immediately, it hits 2 turns after being used. Finally, there's Try Attack, a normal-type special move with 80 base power. It has a 20% chance to either paralyze, burn, or freeze the target. Finally, we get to the status moves. Alakazam has access to quite a few status moves, but the most important one, as mentioned before, is Nasty Plot. Still, there are some other options you might want to consider. Recover is a normal-type move that restores 50% of Alakazam's maximum HP, giving it some survivability. Trick, a Psychic-type move, lets you swap Alakazam's held item with the opponent's, which can be useful in certain strategies. Psychic Terrain, also a Psychic-type move, lasts for 5 turns. While active, it boosts the power of Psychic-type moves for grounded Pokémon and prevents priority moves from hitting Alakazam. These are the main alternative status options, since most other status moves are designed for support or defensive roles, and that's not where Alakazam shines. It's also worth noting that this applies to Pokémon Sword and Shield, as Alakazam doesn't appear in Generation 9, only in Pokémon Legends ZA, where no new significant moves were added. Now we wait for Generation 10 to see if Alakazam gets new tools and maybe opens up new ways to be used in battle. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.